Okay. Well, our final guest is going to talk about her book, and I think it's a memoir. Her book is, and her name is Malika Williams. She has a book called "I'm Just Trying to Live," and it's a book about her experiences and her challenges that she has overcome. And she also is a founder of a nonprofit organization. So, Malika, welcome to Black Authors Matter TV. And we welcome you to tell us about you and your work.
Thank you guys for having me. Hi,
Thank
my
you for
name is
being
Malika
here.
Williams. Um, I am the founder of a nonprofit called the Live Outreach. The Live Outreach was birthed off of just kind of a programming idea of some of the things that I needed for a younger version of myself at the time of things that I went through as a young girl growing up in the city of Detroit. So, um, I'm just trying to live, which is the book I'm the author of, kind of give more insight and more intel of that journey of entering foster care at the age of 14. Um, I became a teen parent, finding out I'm pregnant at 15, having a baby at 16. And by the time I'm like 17 years old, right after graduating high school, I'm like incarcerated, like facing felony charges, like 2 counts of like attempted murder. So I'm looking at like some really, really like serious time. This is like a really, you know, a real, really rough time for me. And at this time, I don't have a lot of support. And, like I don't really have a foundation as far as where I'm going to go, as far as guidance, on top of still also being like a teen parent because, ultimately still, at the end of it, I still had another individual that I was responsible for, and their future was, something that should have been a priority as far as decision making. But at that time, I was so young and I had already had experienced so much trauma that, I didn't have the emotional intelligence to kind of digest this thing other than a way of anger, and resentment, all those negative characteristics that, of course, can cloud your judgment and, of course, make you not make adequate decisions like you need to. And then when you don't have no structure as somebody there guiding you in a way, because I feel like we all go through those points in life where we kind of uh need someone to kind of put us back, or at least even if we don't go that way, we have someone that told us, right? And I think that's really important. You not somebody that's telling you something that is not like you wasn't told that. But if don't nobody tell you, it's like, how do you know? So this is how the Live Outreach is kind of birthed. The book, like I said, just kind of give real insight of just, as in that emotions of, always yearning to want to be loved and understood, because I was kind of always a person that went against what the norm was, right? So, of course, growing up in the 90s, in that era where a lot of parents were on drugs and things like that. So this is kind of like where you start really seeing the real movement of families dividing, where it's starting to be more single family home situations. So, just being conscious and aware of that these things are happening. But, I'm so young, I'm not understanding that. But now being a young mother, being a young adult and being, growing into that, I'm understanding how you're not perfect. You make, in that time it was a different era. It was a lot of different other things that at that time I wouldn't have understood because like I was a kid. But it was a lot of division, and at this time I felt like one of the things with my parents, they always did have like, education was always really big no matter what went on in the home. But it was really strict rules. They really was big on certain things as far as, whatever their beliefs were. So it was really, pushed upon. So I grew up, my parents were Muslim. So, we didn't eat pork and we didn't celebrate Christmas. And it was just certain things that, we never really questioned why we didn't. We just knew that we didn't, right? Um, so, getting into going through those things and just really wanting to be able to give that experience to someone else and let them know that it's pretty much like you can still go to college, you can still do all the things that a lot of times people really think that you incapable of doing, but it's a little harder for you because the lack of resources and things that you might, some of the hills and valleys might be a little different from somebody who might have two parents at home, and that might look different from some for someone else. So I think it's important to kind of always let that vulnerability show, and then just being able to be brave enough to kind of be authentically into your own self to tell your own story, because I went through a lot of things as far as in the book I talked about, like I've had an abortion and things like that, being dealing with things with not being able to pay my rent and things like that, things that I feel like people go through on a day-to-day basis that a lot of times they are embarrassed of, or it's you know and like I was listening to some of the topics you guys talked about earlier, which is kind of like just everybody having their own story, being an author to their own story, and just kind of like authentically standing in that. And
Hmm.
it's kind of like it's nothing that I could really be embarrassed of because it's a part of my life. That's no matter what it is, right? Even in even in my most challenging moments, sometimes I have to stand on what it is. So taking accountability and understanding that, teaching that to the kids is really important as well, as far as allowing them to understand that we all get angry because life is not just going to be childhood, it's going to be young adulthood, it's going to be adulthood, because life happens. And so being able to teach them about stress relievers and having different kind of coping mechanisms to be able to do that. So
Okay. So, what does your foundation do? Does it work? Do you have a place where young women act or teenage women, girls live, or you is it more like a mentoring
it's
organization?
more like a mentoring. Right now, I'm gonna tell you about a few projects. So last year we celebrated 10 years. So for an example, we've been doing more programming. I'm sorry, events per se in the last few years, just because we don't have a physical location, of course, COVID and all those things. But we recently purchased a 14 passenger bus that we've been working with the University of Detroit Mercy. They're Detroit collaborative design. So they're like the school of architect, right? They have a professor and an architect, and they come out and they basically work with the people that like would be me or the board and different people on the team to be able to talk to us about what's our vision with this 14 passenger bus. So we want to kind of change it to like a multi-purpose bus, like where we can pull up and we can have toiletries and fresh fruit and books and different things for the kids. And then, we're also able to do some transporting, because in the city of Detroit, a lot of things is far and wide depending on where you live at, right? If you don't have the adequate transportation, like the regular grocery store is not like a regular, just walk up the street. So, just being able to have those different resources to be able to help those families that don't have that money for that child care after school and different things like that. So we just trying to get strategic with it, where we keeping gaining as much impact with less overhead, just because as a grassroots it's real hard to manage a building and pay employees. Now that's the ideal, but realistically we want to get where we can get in where I feel like it's reasonable. So right now we working on a fundraiser for that. But last year we celebrated 10 years, so we gave away 60 bikes, 80 kites, right at the bike kite burger bash, where we had like face painting, we had free books, a lot of free items that a lot of different organizations donated, as far as like baby clothes and different things like that. We barbecued and things like that. It was a good we had some good community engagement where we were able to have like a table where we had parents and the kids basically say what they would want on this bus and what that would look like in a different fall, different seasons. By we living in Detroit, we have winter. So what would you do in the winter? What would you do in the fall? What would you like to see on there? So
Well, I say in the winter, I'm staying inside. It's cold in
no,
Detroit.
but the kids had some really good ideas like sleighing. They
Yeah,
wanted
see,
to
they have to get
get
out. We don't have we had 1 inch of snow in Houston 2 weeks ago,
Yeah,
and the
she had one
city
inch. She had
shut.
1 inch, and she
No,
thought she was
one
snowed
inch.
in, girl.
One inch. Well, we were. Well, I didn't leave home because guess what? We don't get snow here, and people
Yeah.
can't drive. The whole city shut down. Schools were closed.
Yes.
1 inch of snow. In fact, the schools closed here. If it's a prediction, it could be snow
Mm.
because people can't drive. Then the bus driver, then you got
Mhm.
buses and all of that. So it shuts down if there's a forecast of
Mm.
snow and
Okay.
more than
Wow.
50%. But
Yeah.
we get
We get
real
So,
snow all the
about
time.
once
Like,
every 10 years, and y'all get like the whole winter. You all
so
probably have snow
Malik,
on the ground for months.
so Malika, how does your book play into the foundation? Because the foundation sounds amazing. It's helping a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
How does your book play into it?
so it just provides a lot of it's basically it's very raw, honestly. It just explains like really giving until like in my thought process in my mind, like as I'm going through these things and these different characters while I'm incarcerated, right? And being like at 17, I'm like at this time one of the youngest people in this particular area that they're housing me while I'm, going back and forth to court. And it's literally different situations where I'm like, sitting, we all eating dinner and the lady that's across from me is like coming on the 10 o'clock news. And I'm like, at this time it's like, what do you do in that sense? Like, you know what I'm saying? And this lady did I think honestly was in there for like murdering her baby or something like that. It
Oh
was
my
something
God.
bad. It was something bad because
Okay.
by my crime being like a violent crime, they categorize you by crime. So you would be in there with people that's like murder, felony firearm, arson, like really harsh crimes, robbery, like where somebody rather had a weapon or gun. It was like to an extent that it was kind of severe. It's not like a jaywalking. Nobody was in there for like jaywalking
Okay.
or, you know, traffic tickets or
Mm.
anything. So this was
Okay.
like people that really had really bad crimes. And in the book, I talk a lot about how, a lot of times people think, people that go to jail, they bad people or whatever the case might be. It was a lot of people in there just because they was around the wrong people. They made, the bad decision. They didn't stay home when their mom might have said stay home. And you know what I'm saying? They rode with them friends that they parents might have said wasn't really good. And just as examples of how life choices can really just alter your life. And
Right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Yep.
I talked a lot about because I did this thing called the twisted storytelling where I went to Mary Grove College here and I talked about like I told the whole story, but it's kind of like you tell a story like live. And the way that the people have it structured is kind of cool because you kind of go from one point to another. But the experience of it, I always mention is the judge, Vera Massey Jones, like this lady Vera Massey Jones, because that judge really definitely scared the hell out of me. I say that, excuse my French. She definitely said, "Hey, if I see you in here ever again, like ever again, violate probation, anything, like I'm sending you to prison for 2/3 of like 10 years."
Oh, okay.
Wow.
So
I
you were
mean
kind
that.
of scared straight, like they used
But
to
you
say.
got to remember, by this time I had already did like 8 months in jail, and I had seen a lot in there already.
Yeah.
Where it was kind of. Then I give some a lot of intel in a book about that, like real details about certain, circumstances and situations. Like just unfortunately, it's like a whole nother world. So this is how I understand the whole institutionalized part of it too, because it is kind of like a whole nother entity of world. That's just like here in Michigan, a lot of people work at, automotive plants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've never worked at an automotive plant, but they always say it's like a whole nother world there because you got to think some people in there working 8, 12, 16 hours a day. They in there seeing them people way more than they seeing their families. So it's like it's other people got relationships going on. It's all kind of stuff going on that you wouldn't even typically know what's going on, but they there so much. It's like a whole nother world. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I never experienced it, but I understand that in a jail sense how somebody go there and it's kind of like you, some of the lingo and language is just a whole different world. So I provide a lot of insight on that, just that whole experience as a young kid from my eyes. And then like originally just kind of growing up, my first experience of, I don't really go into a lot of intel about my family, but I did witness like my first murder when I was 8. Like I had a lot of experience with like violence and different situations which kind of had, so when life was lifing for me, that anger just built, it just built onto the trauma because it was never no coping skills or no kind of coping mechanisms given or tools or tactics to be able to relieve or be able to say this is the proper way, So I've always kind of seen things handled with violence. Like, this is not going to go this way, but this the way it's going to go because I'm saying it's going that way. So just learning that, other ways in expressing yourself besides anger, or is other ways in always being frustrated. And of course, that's still a learning thing that I'm still learning right now. And so I think it's important for me to even educate, the youth in that capacity, because I feel like we have, we go through so much because life be so hard for us, just even just
Right,
as Black
right.
people alone. Like it's just hard. You might just be already having a bad day and then somebody give you a hard time, just because of what you look like and where you might be at that time, and it just add on to how the day be. Where if you was on the other hand a different race, or, it wouldn't be that kind of, you wouldn't maybe even experience that. And we all know that that has happened on many occasions. So, just living
Well,
it sometimes is
Malika, when I listen to your story and I'm listening to everything that you're sharing, you could have easily gone a different route with your life. Was it really that judge who scared you, or what was it? What was that point in your life where you said, this is not what I want for myself, or I want better? Was it having a child? Was it being in front of that judge? Was it going to prison? Was it a little bit of everything? What was it that made you say, I'm going to go a different way with my life?
I think that it was always in me to be that way. It was just these were the
Mhm.
obstacles that I was going to have to face to get to where I had to go. I think sometimes, like with myself, I can only speak for myself that I was born with it. It was already in me. So it wasn't nothing that, the only thing is just really doing it. And I've been showing God has allowed me to see that continuously, to be able to be, when you believe in him and believe more in yourself, right?
Mhm.
It's kind of like a recycling factor, as you, continuously understand that it's not just you and you're not control of everything, but you can utilize what has this is could be something that can inspire anybody. You don't know where that story could take or help somebody else. And
Right.
sometimes you just have to be the sacrifice with that. I am very thankful that I was able to come out of that. I think ultimately, overall, a little bit of pieces of things like that do still motivate you, right? So, of course,
Mhm.
having a kid and knowing that you don't want him to still go through all this whole, try to do better, as best as you can was a factor. Of course, the judge saying something, heck, I don't want to go. This is not my life. I don't want to be somebody that go to prison. No, I don't want, so of course, and I feel like those are the constant reminders sometimes we need as those instant, those pushes through life. Sometimes we don't think of it like that, but now that's as a reflection. Sometimes that's how I look at it. Like those different things that look bad, like being a teen mom, nothing is, coincidental, none of those things, but those things have allowed me to be okay. It motivated me. It was a constant reminder of what I needed to do to stay afloat and try to stay focused as much as I could. And at the end of it, still a journey. It's still hard. And I always want people to understand that like it's never a place where it's a breeze. I think people think you work so hard and then it's just like, oh, life is great, and then you put your it's never that. Every day, certain things are triggering in your life. This is why you have to recognize those things that's triggering and things that trigger those things, because it's like things that you would never get. It's kind of like a wound, right? You got a scar and you might have cut yourself, and you will always know that that was there, because it's kind of like it might be a little faint line there, but you still know that that is there. So I feel like that's just kind of how life traumas sometimes are. And you can take it really good, or and try to use it really in a great way, or you can take it and we can dwell and wither. And sometimes that's, that doesn't do well.
Do you have a copy of your book handy?
Yes.
So you can show, because we haven't shown the cover yet. And the title is
I'm just trying to live.
okay.
I
Okay.
like the title.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What
Now,
is the art though? Is that I
So
can't really tell.
what's the image? What is the image of?
it's a lady with her arm up.
Okay, I thought that's what that was. I couldn't really tell.
Okay.
So it was a lady that I had worked with, and I had the original canvas that she had created, because she was getting into like creating different things. And I live the live outreach logo is a butterfly. So most of the time, like, this is,
Okay. Oh,
it's
okay.
a
Okay.
butterfly.
I see it. Okay.
So anything with butterflies, she had butterflies like all through her afro on the picture, on the canvas.
Oh,
And
okay.
so I asked the lady, because we had worked together for a lot of years, and I said, I really like your work, and I see what you're trying to do. Is it okay if, are you selling a picture or whatever? And she said, you know what, I know you love butterflies. I'll let you have it. And
Okay.
so I reached out to her later on, once I was, because it took me a long time, even though this book is not that thick. It took me a long time to complete this book, because it was a lot of trauma I had to kind of, go through and memorize. And then I had to stop. And then you start crying. Then you start thinking about something else. Then your mind wander. You ain't. So it took me a while. And even though I want to do some upgrades to it, I just wanted to have something tangible, because it was something that was like a goal of mine that I had definitely wanted to have. And if I was to, anything was to happen to me tomorrow, it would be something that my kids and I don't have any grandchildren, but, God might bless me with some, that they will have something of me, of a story that they will be able to know that was my truth. So I'm just definitely proud of that.
Okay. Now, how old is your? Is it a son or a daughter that you have?
My oldest is 25.
Oh
Wow.
wow. Okay.
You look
Wow.
25
God bless
yourself.
you. I know.
You had that baby when you were one.
Wow.
Oh, get the
Okay.
time do fly, yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that tell my age. Yes, that, like, this story is like a 25-year-old story. Yep,
Yeah.
25.
Well, but uh, there's nothing new under the sun, really, in terms
No.
of it can always help somebody because every generation has challenges. The main thing that changes from one generation to the next is technology, but human nature is the same.
Yes.
So, um, people hopefully learn from their experiences, and sometimes going to jail can be a wake up call for a lot of people, and then some people turn it around after that. If hopefully they're not in too long, but or even if they are, some people are able to turn it around from that. But some people aren't. It just depends.
And it's everything
It,
is mental. And that's
yeah, I
my
think
thing.
you have to believe in yourself.
Yes.
Well,
And it's a lot of prayer
yes, I
and,
was going to say
and
believe in God.
self-reflection. I think
Yes.
accountability is a big thing in society we just don't talk about. But like a lot of times, pointing the fingers, a lot of times when you accept things for what they are and how they can, what they are, it's like, you have to live in a reality that's reality, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just like I would want to, right now I want $1 million house, right? But I settle for a $300,000 house. You get what I'm saying? Like, I settle for, it's like you got to be grateful for good grace. And I think sometimes we always want more and more. And I'm working on that too. I'm guilty of that too, of just being, thankful and grateful in that moment and appreciative of things. And just grateful to be able to be on a platform where, Black authors are highlighted and their stories are, mentioned, because there's so many great stories out here. And I'm so proud to be able to hear the different, perspectives, and then it opens your mindset of just, how people live different all over the world. And I think that's another thing with working with the youth. I want them to be able to have an open mindset. You gotta, if you live all over the world, people live different. Everybody don't live like how you live, no matter where
Right.
you at. So
Right.
I
That's
think
true.
that it's a even with the culture differences, it's just an educational thing. You know what I'm saying? We all want to be loved. We all want to be respected. We all have boundaries of things. And so that's just, I think that's just a human thing. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Well, we're at the
appreciate
end
you.
of our time, Malika. The show. We're at the end of the show. So show your cover one more time, real quickly, and so people can get your book. And on the, it says Malika a Dreamer,
Yes,
right?
which is my middle
When you
name,
look it
Malika.
up,
Yep.
when you look it up on Amazon,
Yeah,
you can do
and
by the
I did
title.
put your link in the chat.
Okay.
There were actually a couple of people who were asking for your link. I had already put it in the chat, but since they asked for it, I said, let me put it in the chat again. So that means
Okay.
that your story has really resonated with our viewers, and you've really touched some people. And I pray that you continue to touch people with your story, because this is how lives get changed.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. I
And continue
appreciate you
success
guys.
with your nonprofit.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. You ladies have a great night.
You
You
too.
too.
Bye.
Bye bye.